Test.
Wonder what the what? Hello?
Test.
You can kick me out if you want.
Jennifer, thanks for joining. We'll be starting momentarily when members of the committee get here. We are live streaming.
Show.
Is now joining.
Hey, all. Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you? It sounds scratchy. You sound scratchy, like you're scratching a record.
Who, me?
Oh, now it's okay. There's a weird scratchy noise. What the hell?
That was,
What's that?
it was me scratching.
Oh my God.
I hope we're not live yet.
I
hope
probably
we
are.
are.
We are.
Are we? Oh, we are we? Why do you guys do that to us?
Mark was doing his DJing,
Yeah,
scratching
Yeah.
a record.
you just
He's
can't
Doing
get away
scratching.
from that. You watched the inauguration?
Oh yes, I was up early.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
What do you mean up early? It was on at like 10:30.
No, 6 a.m. you had to be up to watch Trump.
Oh, right, yeah.
Oh, oh God. Good for you.
Had to make sure it was happening. My coffee just dinged. I'll be back. Everyone survived the wind?
Nope.
Yeah.
No, Mark did not.
But Madam Clerk, Mayor Spearman's not available right now, is he?
That's correct. He won't be attending today.
Okay,
Oh.
so why don't I start chairing the meeting?
I'm fine to do it unless you want
Oh,
to do it.
that's even better.
Yeah, I'll do it until we get a vice chair, and then I'll
Okay.
relinquish. I'm happy to do
Thank you.
that. Maybe we'll wait a couple minutes for everybody.
I don't know.
Who are we missing?
Who are we missing?
I think we're all here.
Yeah, I think everyone's here.
Okay, then I will get started.
Jeff Kaufman.
He's
Kaufman's here?
one.
Oh, there he
Is
is.
he
Yeah, I see him down there.
Looks like we have
Okay.
everybody. So as
Right.
mentioned, the mayor will not be attending this meeting. The mayor, as per the terms of reference, is the chair of the meeting. So I will just chair the meeting until we get a vice chair and then relinquish the meeting over to that chair.
Okay.
So I call this meeting to order, the first meeting of the Economic Standing Policy Committee. I'd like to read the acknowledgement statement first. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationships to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Just going to do a roll call first. Councillor Campbell.
Here.
Councillor Carlson.
Here.
Councillor Kaufman.
Present.
Councillor Croson.
Good afternoon.
Councillor Morrow. I think I've seen you on the line. Councillor Morrow?
Yep, I'm here.
Great. Councillor Parker.
Here.
Acting Mayor Hagan.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Here.
Mayor Spearman. And he's not attending today, so we have 8 present. Just one little announcement. I'd like to acknowledge Janessa Brown. She's a new legislative assistant. She's sitting with Ryan today and helping with this meeting. So welcome, Janessa, to the City Clerk's office. So the first order of business is election of Vice Chair. I'd like to call for nominations from the floor for Vice Chair.
I'll nominate Jeff Carlson.
Second, and move nomination cease.
Councillor Carlson, do you accept the nomination?
You're very speedy, Councillor Miyashiro, Deputy Mayor. I will accept and trust that there may be other nominations forthcoming.
Any other nominations from the floor for Vice Chair of the Economic Standing Policy Committee?
I move nomination cease.
I second that.
Any other nominations? Okay, so a motion to cease. I know that we did that, but for procedure, motion to cease nominations. Councillor Kaufman? Okay, so Councillor Carlson, by acclamation, you are the Vice Chair of the Economic Standing Policy Committee. Congratulations, and I will relinquish the chair to you, and I will email you the notes for chairing for the rest of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well played, my friends. Maybe I'll say my colleagues instead. Thank you. I'm sorry that Mayor Spearman couldn't be with us today. We do have the agenda in front of us. Has everyone had a chance to look at it? There is only one item at the moment. Any comments or thoughts on the agenda? If none, do we approve things, Madam City Clerk, by consensus at committee level?
We would adopt the agenda if there's any
By
additions
motion?
to the agenda.
By consensus or motion?
You can do it by general consent unless there's objection.
Okay, thank you. Is there any objection to the agenda as presented? I'm seeing none. That is carried. I know, Bonnie, you've sent me something. Do I need it for the rest of the meeting, or can we move on to Ms. Pinkson's presentation?
I would need to read the acknowledgement statement.
Bonnie did that.
He already.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
You can move on to presentations, item 4.
Okay, so thank you. We do have one item in front of us, Ms. Pinkson, City Treasurer, on the proposed 2022-2031 CIP revised schedule. Haley, are you with us?
I'm going to be presenting on Haley's behalf today.
Hello, Jennifer. Welcome. We'll make that change in the minutes. Thank you. If everyone has a copy of the presentation in front of them, I hope. We'll let you carry on. Thank you.
Just 1 second. We're switching things up so that you'll get the presentation on your screen. Ryan's running madly, back and forth.
Good afternoon, members of Economic Standing Policy Committee. Thank you for having me here today to go over the proposed 2022 to 2031 Capital Improvement Program revised schedule update. Next slide.
I see Ryan is running madly again, I think.
Yes, we're scrambling. It comes up on our screen in the chamber, but I see it, all you can see is the logo on Teams right now, right?
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Jennifer. I'll just ask, are there any members of council who don't have access to a copy of the presentation? It was sent out with the agenda. If anyone does not have access, speak now. Otherwise, we can probably carry on.
Looks like it's there now.
Oh, it's there now. All right. Excellent. Thanks, Jennifer. Carry on.
Okay. So what is the capital program? It is a plan that matches the capital wants, needs, and priorities of the community with a financial strategy. This is where the tough decisions have to be made. Matching what the community wants and needs with the funding available can be difficult. Next slide. Why do we prepare a CIP? The MGA requires that we prepare a 5-year capital plan. At the City of Lethbridge, we prepare a 10-year capital plan, of which the first 4 years are approved. The CIP helps the city to sustain existing infrastructure, shape our community for years to come, and enhance the quality of life of our citizens. It also requires some flexibility in order to take advantage of various capital grant programs as they arise. Next slide. So back on May 21st, 2019, Finance Committee was provided with a presentation on the CIP process. The prioritization criteria for community projects in Section D was presented and approved by City Council on October 5th, 2020. Section D, community project applications have all been received. And then for the next 2 slides, I guess if you go to the next slide, if you look at the dates that are marked with an asterisk, these are the items that will be coming forth to economic SPC meetings this year. So some of these dates had to be rescheduled due to the 2021 and 2022 operating budget review. Usually in November, the Section D projects were scored based on the project prioritization criteria approved by Council. This has been rescheduled to the end of this month. Normally in October, off-site projects are presented for consideration, but this has been rescheduled until February 10th of 2021. The proposed utility, transportation, and electric projects are normally presented for consideration in November. These have been rescheduled for February 10th, February 24th, and March 10th. There will be 3 days of presentations for the proposed Section D community projects for consideration. These 3 dates are March 24th, April 7th, and April 21st. If you go to the next slide. If Economic SPC chooses to do so, we would do online engagement and a virtual open house in March and April. Also in April, City Council will approve a transition option to the budget process. In May, a draft CIP document will be presented. CIP budget deliberations will then occur from May 10th to the 14th, ultimately leading to City Council approval of the 2022 to 2031 CIP on May 18th. Next slide. So the current forecasted available funding we have up to the end of 2025, which is till the next 4-year CIP window, is $26.5 million. This amount will be revised and updated as we proceed through the CIP process and as more information comes available. We currently do not have verified information from the province regarding the MSI replacement program, which is called the Local Government Fiscal Framework, and the Federal Gas Tax Fund. So some of the assumptions that have been made in this available funding are that Pay-As-You-Go Community and FGTF will continue to 2025, but MSI funding will end in 2021, as the future funding through the local government fiscal framework is still unknown. The available funding may change due to the future provincial budget, as the decisions to be made may have an impact on future funding for municipalities. Next slide. So this is a list of the recent budget engagement activities that have occurred over the past few years. In 2018 and 2020, Ipsos surveys were conducted. Community engagement has also occurred for the 2018 to 2027 CIP in the form of online engagement, storyboards at multiple locations, and an open house. Online engagement was also done on the Get Involved Lethbridge website for the 2019 to 2020 operating budget, as well as for the 2021 to 2022 operating budget review. A question we have for Economic SPC today is, would you like to do community engagement for CIP this year? And if so, we would suggest that given the COVID situation we're currently in, that all engagement should be done online and there would be minimal in-person engagement. Next slide. So this is just another summary document that shows the community engagement activities recently done, listed by programs and services that the city provides, and the feedback received from the community. And I think that is the end of the presentation. So if there are any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Jarrett. Appreciate the presentation. Council or members of finance do have some questions. I'll allow for general questions on the presentation right now, and then perhaps at the end, we'll ask your question about what is Finance Committee's expectation on engagement. So I think I had Councillor Kaufman first in the queue.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Thank you, Ms. Jarrett, for the presentation, for the information. On the, you mentioned the 3 dates, March 24th, April 7th, and April 21st for Section D deliberation. Is there an opportunity for deliberation on the off-site as well? Was that on the schedule? Sorry, I was looking at the small screen. I didn't have my big presentation open.
Yeah, so the dates that you mentioned are the presentations that will be happening. The deliberations for Section D will occur on May 10th to the 14th.
Okay. Thank you. So it's on the off-site levies, and this maybe goes to your community engagement question. If there's going to be an opportunity for members of the construction industry to actually participate in a conversation around off-site levies.
I think we're having a meeting tomorrow about off-site levies, so we can pose that question then.
Okay, thank you. Have you heard anything regarding MSI, daughter of MSI budget, or has the province just been tight-lipped on all of them?
Yeah, we haven't heard anything yet so far.
No, it's crickets with us too. Same, haven't heard a thing.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then I'll chime back in when we're addressing your question. Thank you, Councillor Carlson.
Thank you on that. And maybe I'll just do a follow-up before I get, I think Councillor Campbell's next, but a follow-up to that. The province had announced, and I can't remember what it's called, like a municipal funding framework, something that was going to be, that they had pegged at I think it was 800 million per year, province-wide. But we're wondering if that might be in question in the upcoming budget. Is that what that's the crickets we're hearing?
Yeah, it's called the Local Government Fiscal Framework.
That's what it is. Thank you.
Right.
Right. And was that, I think it was around 800 million province-wide at that point, but we think it might be reduced considering the budget restraints right now. Is that the concern?
Yeah, I believe the allocation, the per capita allocation calculation is changing, so Lethbridge may get a different portion of the total funding envelope.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Campbell, I believe you were next.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Carlson, and thanks for the presentation. I just do you mind if you could just help me understand pay-as-you-go community, where that money comes from? How do we get that money? Why is it 19 million? How do we tap into it? I just need a little further explanation for myself if I could.
So that is, we have budgeted in the operating budget 0.15% increase per year to come from taxation for pay-as-you-go.
So that all that money that's in the pocket there comes from taxation that we can get into.
Correct.
And that adds up to 19.5 million right now?
No, this is just the forecasted funding that is still available in that particular fund currently.
And so
sorry, this
okay.
line, I don't know if you still have the presentation up,
Yep,
but the forecasted available funding up to 2025 includes pay-as-you-go community, as well as pay-as-you-go internal borrowing, as well as what is in the major capital projects reserve. So it's a combination of a whole bunch of different funding sources to come to 19.5 million. That would be
sure, and this is still forecasted. So we don't necessarily, that's not a for sure amount right there.
Yeah, correct. That might slightly change.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Are there any more general questions on Ms. Jared's presentation thus far? If not, I'm going to go around. I'll probably ask each of my colleagues individually their thoughts on the engagement portion. I'm trying to scroll to it. Council's expectation for CIP engagement. Some history in past, we've had a lot of engagement with the public. We've had public open houses. We've had finance meetings where the public has been invited to. And I believe it's, I think Ms. Jared said it's because of COVID. We're looking at how do we do such things? Ms. Jared, do you want to give, you had a recommendation, I believe, about how we could manage it, or maybe I misheard, but I thought I heard a recommendation in there. Maybe I could get you to restate that, and then I'll get my colleagues' thoughts on that.
For sure. I think if we were to do community engagement for the CIP, we would suggest that, given the COVID situation we're currently in, that all engagement should be done online and that there should be minimal in-person engagement. I mean, previously we've done online engagement, but also we've done storyboards at multiple locations and an open house as well.
Okay, so thank you. Maybe I'll just go around the table quickly to say, are people still thinking we should do public engagement? I'll err on the side of yes. And is there anyone who thinks that we don't do any public engagement? Councillor Crossan has her hand up. Belinda?
So mine is yes, we should do public engagement, but I also think we need to remind ourselves and the public that now that this is Economic Standing Policy Committee, at every one of our meetings, there is the avenue for the public to engage with us. So on any of our agenda items, people can send in written submissions and or ask to present, and we can figure out how to do that virtually. So we already have an avenue in this new Standing Policy Committee that we can use for public engagement, because people can be invited to these meetings throughout. So I just want to make sure that we are aware of that, and to make sure the public is aware that wherever we stand in public engagement, this Standing Policy Committee is created for public engagement.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor. A good reminder for how these SPCs will work. Councillor Miyashiro, sorry, Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say the same thing because I've been in lots of meetings with Councillor Crossan where she's reminded us of that. So I was able to retain that for some good reason. I think it's really important that we have some kind of community engagement. There's always something that might be out there that's a good idea that we haven't thought of, something that's cost effective, that we can do things in a different way in terms of a capital expenditure. So it certainly doesn't hurt. And ultimately, we have to make the decision. but if, I don't think it's prudent for us to just shut it down. So I'd be in favor of that.
Agreed. I'm not seeing any dissent that we do have public engagement. And as Councillor Croson has reminded us, at each of our committee meetings, there is that avenue for folks to engage. I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of the public open houses that we traditionally had. And maybe I'll ask Ms. Jarrett, or I think I heard City Manager Dalton speak earlier, of how we could maybe envision a public open house online. Is that something that's possible or envisioned?
I'm not sure if we've done any thinking on that to date, but I think we probably need to, not just for the CIP process, but for any other areas that council wants to engage in, given where we sit right now. So I'm not sure, Jennifer, if any specific thought's been given to that, but if not, we will come back with some options and ideas.
No,
Thank you.
definitely. We can, we have provided storyboards to the public where they, so we could do that electronically somehow on our Get Involved website or something like that, but we haven't really discussed it very much, so.
Thanks, because I think it would be interesting if we could figure out some way. I've been involved in this process 3 or 4 times now, and it's always interesting. Folks will come through the open house, view the boards, and because we have incredibly knowledgeable staff there, they're able to answer some fairly in-depth, detailed questions. I don't know how that would work online, but if some thought could be given to if it's possible and how we could manage it, I think that'd be something for the committee to look at. Any other thoughts on public engagement from Councillor Kaufman?
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. The difference between in-person and online is surprisingly people want greater anonymity, it seems to be online. The nice thing about in-person is you can wander around City Hall atrium and talk to people one-on-one. When you come online, it's open to everybody to see, and people may not be comfortable asking questions. So for me, having the opportunity for people to participate live if they want to do that, for sure. But it's about real significant question and answer opportunities. So if somebody sees a project, if they've got the ability to ask a question, and I'm not saying anonymously, but I'm saying out of a whole bunch of people watching them, it's like standing up at an event and public speaking, which not everybody is comfortable with. So the opportunity for people to ask a question, receive an answer, provide the feedback, and in a format that council sees might be a way of balancing it. I think for public open house, yeah, Councillor Carlson's correct. I think you'd have a number of people showing up, and I'm not sure about any sort of online Q&A opportunities being as fulsome as people might want, as there is that comfort level. I think, Ms. Jarrett, your idea about storyboards is excellent. Having that available, obviously, online is really good for the community. The question then that always seems to come up, especially around capital, is what are people able to comment upon? Is it only the Section D projects, or are there other things? That's why I ask about the the off-site levy conversation. Is it possible for, because I know Build has actually had this request in already, they would like the opportunity to discuss the off-site levy and what projects it's going towards and things of that nature as well. So is it just Section D? Can we expand that to the off-sites related to Sections C and I think it's E? Or is it everything in which people can comment? Thank you.
Was there a question in there, Jeffrey, about the offsites? I didn't want to skip over.
Wouldn't you agree?
Excellent, good question.
No, I think Ms. Jarrett has a response, but it's basically, is there an opportunity? And we heard earlier that there's going to be a conversation about offsite tomorrow, but is there the opportunity for people to speak beyond just the Section D? there may be a desire to have a long-term look at how capital budget is done. If council is only having the opportunity to discuss section D, everything else maybe should be presented in a different format or different manner. So that's why I'm asking, is it just section D? Is there the opportunity to expand that to other things as well?
So and if I can just get clarity, and sorry, I do have Councillor Mishiro, or Deputy Mayor Mishiro, and Councillor or Acting Mayor Hagan.
So let me just throw this out there because it really relates to what Councillor Kaufman just said, is that we have the other standing policy committees as well, that we can have those discussions about offsites and how those are spent to feed back into our council or committee of the whole. So let's say rather than look at specifically feedback on the CIP issue for build is going to come to our public works standing policy committee, and they can have the discussion with us there as well, right? Not just the committee of the whole. They can come here, but we can get those some questions answered for them prior to them coming to talk about the economic part of it right here. So there's all those different avenues, I think, Jeff, that we can actually have better engagement with some of these groups than we had previously, because now we have 2 or 3 different avenues that they can get answers from. My thought anyway.
If I can, Councillor Carlson, just in respond to that, absolutely. My concern is that not everybody may be in attendance, and you have the potential of people losing information or missing information. So doing it to the committee of the whole through economic seems to be a bit wiser to me, but absolutely, as you say, we can have a very fulsome conversation at Civic Works about that for sure. So thank you.
So here's a thought, and sorry, Councillor Mishra, did you have another point?
No, the second one is that we have to be wary that when we do the public meetings, often we have as many staff and council members present as we do public, which doesn't allow for a greater variety of comment or question and answer either. And sometimes it's the the same 20 people that show up for everything. And I think not that their opinion doesn't matter, but if we're trying to get a broader scope of people asking questions and engaged, that those public meetings that I've ever been to for things like this, it seems like the same people show up every time. In fact, the first budget that I was ever involved with last term, there were the night I was there was 12 public and 24 staff and council. So we have to be wary of that factor as well.
But we had cookies. Question maybe, Councillor Kaufman, on February 10th, what now is proposed is the section C and E, the offsite projects, and the section C non-offsite. There will be opportunity at that meeting for input. So that is one place. But I feel that on the day that things are presented, people may not have time to properly give feedback, and maybe that's what you're thinking as well. I'm wondering if in the 3 days that we have proposed for section D, we take one of those days and have it more global. So people on day 3, for example, rather than just public feedback on section D, that where we allow folks to have public feedback on everything. Is that kind of what you were thinking, Jeffrey, about a way to allow people to hear it, have some soak time, and then an opportunity to publicly provide feedback, whether it be in writing or, but again, it will be in front of everyone in a public format, so it is kind of daunting to some people. I do get that.
Yeah, I think the difference being, and I see Mr. Hawkins' hands up, so he may have a response, but I think the difference being that when you talk about the offsite levies, we have a couple of organizations and players that can kind of come together. So we would have 1 or 2 representations or presentations, and predominantly through Build. So I'm not seeing necessarily a fulsome conversation on that. And then to your second part about having the opportunity for people to ask questions, that's for me where the Q&A opportunities and the input opportunities need to be available certainly to those who just want to show up and come online and present. But I think for the vast majority of people that would prefer just to, can I just send in an email or send in a request and get a live or get a response that is public as well to my question. That's the perspective I'm.
Thank you for that. Councillor Higgin, I know your hand, Acting Mayor Higgin, I know your hand is still up. Mr. Hawkins, I see your hand up. You may want to interject. But before I do, just 1 second, Doug, to either Ms. Jared or City Manager, we are still planning to have the online engagement that we've had before, where the projects are up there and people have the opportunity to comment. I can't remember what they were called, even though I was chair of the committee that ran it. But we had that ability for a length of time. The projects are up there and people were commenting on it. At the end of all that, all those responses and comments and questions were given to council. Is that still being contemplated, that type of engagement? Or at least information, question and answer?
Yeah, I think we can consider that for sure.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hawkins, did you have a response to this before I move on to Acting Mayor?
Just to Councillor Kaufman's questions about engaging the industry, and by industry, it is primarily build that we need to address our offsite projects too. Just so you know, staff is in direct dialogue with build right as we speak. In fact, they're in possession of the draft, all of the projects, at least in a draft form, that are being contemplated for presentation on February 10th in front of Economic SPC in that setting. So there is that engagement that's happening directly with them right now. I think what Councillor Kaufman is speaking to is to make sure that there's an opportunity created for Bill to speak directly to you as ultimately as the committee. So yeah, we will absolutely address that either, and it may be a couple opportunities. February 10th is coming quickly. If when we're talking to Bridget Mearns this week, we can see to what extent she'd be in a position to engage with you on the 10th and as Economic SPC that day. And just further to that, it would always be our intention, whether it's online or in person, open house, to actually to have storyboards for every single project. That has been our past practice. It isn't just Section D. Obviously, Section D tends to have the most gravity. That's where people are the most interested. But we would always present the full program to the public, either online or in a face-to-face open house. I think we're really mindful though of the pandemic, and I think it's going to be, we need to talk about the logistics. If council wants to do something in the foyer of City Hall or at a community center or something like that, in terms of what the health orders require us to do. So anyway, that was my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Thank you, Acting Mayor Higgin. You've been very patient with me. Did you have a question?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Appreciate this. No, I was just similar questions to that of Councillor Kaufman regarding the community engagement part throughout this process. And I know we spoke a little bit about the online engagement, and that's fine. But it just, to me, sometimes the dialogue is somewhat limited, and it's difficult to engage in a conversation. You'll put in a question or a concern or a comment, and it's just having that face to face. And I understand with this pandemic, it's definitely a little more difficult. And I don't know if there's something we can do with following health protocols to be able to have a little more engagement that way, where there's, some dialogue could be created with those in the lobby if it's limited, or there's storyboards will be there. That's my question, is I just want to know if there's a way to do that. And it sounds like throughout the discussion we've just had that there may be that possibility and that we can look into that. So that's my main question. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're all thinking the same things or similar things and hearing similar things we'd like to engage with the public as possible. We're in a bit of a fluid situation. We don't know what the public health orders are going to be and how we can, but I think we're mindful that we do want to engage our public as much as possible in as many ways possible. And so I guess I'll just ask that we be willing to maybe adapt as things morph and change. And if opportunities present themselves, and I think I heard Mr. Dalton, Mr. Hawkins, Ms. Jarrett all say that they're going to consider as many ways or brainstorm as many ways as possible. So any further questions, comments, thoughts from my colleagues? I'm seeing none. Mr. Jarrett, I'll just ask, there were two slides after it said questions, I believe. Did you need to address those, or were those just for information? Because I know they were attached separately as well. I'm going to assume that silence means that no, they were just there for our information. So just call one more time. Any questions from members of the committee? I'm seeing none, so I will flip back to my agenda if I can. And I think Bonnie emailed me something. I have a motion that the Economic Standing Policy Committee receive the update on the 2022-2031 Capital Improvement Program for information. Would someone care to move that? Thank you, Councillor Kaufman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. Any further discussion? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Folks, that was the only item we had for this SPC today. I believe I'll ask Ms. Helfer, we've added all these dates to Councillor's calendar, have we not? I believe they were sent
just
today.
this morning I did, yes.
Excellent. So just to caution my colleagues, this one will be busy over the next few months, this committee, because we are dealing with CIP. So it'll be a fairly heavy lifting committee. So I just ask you all to check your calendars and make sure those dates are in there and that you can attend where possible. Seeing nothing further, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Campbell.
Thank you, Mark. And we are adjourned. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Meeting is over, and we'll see many of you tomorrow at our next meeting. Take care.
Thank you.
Is now exiting.